Hello, welcome back to Ultrascape podcast. We're now on episode 8, and I'm joined as always by Becky Waters.
Hey Josh, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. And for the first time ever, we've got a very special guest. We're joined by Hannah Simon. Hi, Hannah. How are you?
Hello, thanks so much for having me. Honored to be the very first guest on Ultrascape.
And hopefully not the last as well. So hopefully it's a nice experience for you.
Yes.
So where are you at the moment, Hannah? You're on the road, aren't you?
I am, yes, yeah. I'm currently sitting in a lobby of a hotel in Marseille, in France, kind of between things. So
That's,
got a couple weeks until bright midnight in Norway, and just finished up Alperi like a week ago now. What day is it? I don't know. I'm in tour mode now, so
yeah, you can tell you've been on the road for a while now when you just don't have a clue what day it is. And actually,
exactly.
the last time I saw you, it was riding up a hill to the start of the Hellenic race with a suitcase in tow, which was quite
Yeah.
amusing. So I think the bag drop off for the Hellenic mountain race was not in the town where everyone was staying. It was about 2k away up a 1k climb. So there was various degrees of people riding bikes, pulling bike bags or suitcases.
Yeah, I
It-
had my zebra print carry-on strapped to my Old Man Mountain rear rack. It was excellent.
But there we go. That is life on the road, isn't it? I guess. And yeah, it's amazing what you can carry on a bike. So before we go any further, just have to say a big thank you to Redshift. They're of course sponsoring the podcast. Becky, have you fitted your new bars yet?
What?
That'd be a no then. So Becky, Becky's
No,
got.
they're still sitting in the box waiting for me to get on with it. Yeah.
So Becky's got some very lovely Redshift bars, which she still hasn't fitted. So at some point we'll have a thorough review, but until that point they're sat in a box in her house. So yeah, big thank you to Redshift. Obviously got a little discount, so we'll put the link on the screen. And in other news, Becky, you've got a rather nice T-shirt on today.
Well, thanks, Josh. It turned up last week. Almost clean.
After I'd worn it for a while because I got the wrong size. But yeah, Albion have, I'll put it so you can see it on screen, done us some merch. So these Albion Ultrascape T-shirts, they will be available at some point soon. But in the meantime, they've given us a 15% discount code for any listeners. So I'll put that on screen as well or down below. So yeah, an Albion discount code is a pretty rare thing. So yeah, make the most of that quick. And the Albion T-shirts should be available to buy, hopefully by the next podcast. But don't hold me to that because things do take a while to arrive sometimes. So Becky, on to the news. What's been happening in the past month?
Well, we had the Transatlantic Way last week, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, is a ride around the perimeter of Ireland, not the whole way around, but about 2/3 of it. And this year they changed direction. They normally start up north and head south, but they didn't. They flipped it round. And Benjamin Koch came in first in just under 5 days of riding. In fourth position, we had Ronan McLaughlin, which was quite an interesting rider to follow. So he's an Irish rider. He's local to a lot of the northern route. He actually holds the world record for Everesting. So he's an excellent climber with a background in road racing, and he's been to the World Championships road race. So he's no stranger to riding fast. We just weren't sure if he could ride far, and it turns out he definitely can. He came in fourth whilst also doing a circumnavigation of Ireland. So I believe the Transatlantic Way was the first section of that. And then he just carried on back to the start and kept going. This was all in pursuit of raising awareness for food allergies, which is something that his daughter's been diagnosed with or suffers from. Elsewhere in the race, this was interesting. I saw with Ronan and Florian Moreau, they've both kind of written their own challenges. Florian Moreau, we mentioned him in the last episode. He's riding Does It As Bikers, Transatlantic Way, and eventually the Transcontinental, but he's riding between them. So it'll total 13,500 kilometers in under 44 days. And he, the process of doing that, finished first on the Setanta route at the Transatlantic Way, which is the shorter of the route, 1,700 kilometers. So I thought they were quite interesting.
Yeah, and Ronan, he writes for the Escape Collective too, which is pretty cool. website, which has kind of been created in the last couple of years. So definitely worth checking those guys out for some. They do some pretty cool, interesting content around the world of obviously pro racing, but also the wider world of cycling as well. So yeah, definitely worth a look. Elsewhere, the Race Around Netherlands GX, which is the gravel version of the Race Around the Netherlands, the fastest woman was Marjan van Galen. Again, apologies, my Dutch pronunciations aren't fantastic. She won in a little over 7 days, and fastest overall was Laurens ten Dam in 4.5 days. So yeah. Lawrence riding his local race for him.
The Race Around the Netherlands always strikes me because it's much harder than it looks. It is arguably the flattest race on the calendar, but there's never a windless race. There's a headwind somewhere, always.
Yeah, very similar to where I live in the east of England here, and I can assure you that it can absolutely destroy you when it's a windy day. And actual fact, I think that's why I've done relatively well in these long races over time, because you're just always pedaling. And some people, they get used to pushing hard up a hill and then freewheeling down. But when you're in the flats, you're always going. And I'm sure Hannah can confirm that it's kind of, when you're on the pedals non-stop all the time, even on sections of Tour Divide, it catches up with you, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, certainly. Well, that's what I was about to say too. Is like everybody's got their specialty for how they train, right? So like if like that part of Europe and maybe where you are too, Josh, it's like wind and rain. And then if you live in the mountains, then you've got the climbing. For me in Texas, I've got heat. So, that translates in its own sense. Just, whatever you've got, there's always adversity.
Yeah, exactly. There's always a race that suits you, and most of the time it won't suit you, especially on these bikepacking races.
Well, it sounds like an event that you would have done well at, Hannah, is Convoy. It's another race elsewhere in Europe, over in Spain, and this year was hot and dry. It typically is, with a couple of rainy or snowy interludes, but it's generally a hot, dry race. And this was won by a young fella called Sylvain Argense. He's French. He came in 3 days, 15 hours. So he was the fastest and the youngest. Whereas British rider Millie Gibbons came in 4 days and 5 hours. She was the fastest woman and 6th overall, showing that she rarely finishes outside of the top 10. She's a pretty reliable overall rider.
Elsewhere, we've got Molly Weaver is currently on the edge. So that's her On the Edge project, which is riding around the entire coastline of the British Isles. So the current record, she needs to do it basically in under 22 days. So she's currently around 8 days, 16 hours in as of the time of recording this podcast. She's done 3,100k, so that's about 40% of the total distance. And currently that sets her about 200k ahead of Nick Sanders' 1984 record. After Sarah Ruggins setting she started in, was it Land's End?
John O'Groats.
John O'Groats Land's End, John O'Groats record, essentially twice the length of the United Kingdom. We could have a second woman setting a record around or in the UK in as many months, which is pretty cool to see. And then talking of northern Spanish races, we had obviously Convoy starting and finishing in Girona, and also El Piri, which started and finished in Girona. That was won overall by Ulrich Bartholomews. It's a name you may recognise from the Tour Divide the last couple of years. He actually lives in Girona, so it's basically his home race in, I think it was about 50 hours. And then in 15th position, and the first woman overall, Hannah Simon. Hannah, tell us about it.
Yeah. Yes, I can confirm. I didn't realize that Convoy also started and ended in Girona. That's cool to know. Funny to have two things kind of going on almost simultaneously. I mean, it makes sense. There's a lot going on in Girona when it comes to bikes. But yes, can confirm during El Piri was also hot and mostly dry. I was able to avoid, there was one big storm that took a lot of people out that I was just ahead of on the route. For the most part, I think people were really struggling with how hot it was in the afternoons. Not a whole lot of relief from any like clouds or rain or anything. There was a couple moments where there were some Brits around me who were like, could it just rain already so I can have some relief?
Yeah, I can assure you that if it was raining, they would also be complaining. It's just how we are, I'm
Yeah.
afraid.
We're never happy.
So the route, well, the race is obviously organised by James Hayden, who's
Okay.
won TCR a couple of times, and it's kind of in the foothills and I guess the lower parts of the Pyrenees. Was there much in the way of big high passes or?
There were a couple times that you had to get kind of up and over, and really that's kind of the theme of it. It feels like, because you're just thinking about what the next kind of mountain pass is. It doesn't get up real high though. Sorry, my meters aren't great, but it was about 6,000 feet. 6 to 8,000 feet was like what you were kind of climbing between a lot of the time.
Yeah, so mostly under 2,000 or so meters, isn't it?
Exactly, yes. And you weren't staying up there for very long at any one point. So, and it was actually kind of nice. Like you wanted to be up a little higher, especially like I said in the afternoon heat. So,
yeah,
yeah, definitely keeps you climbing. But I mean, James's main thing, he talks about how it's not necessarily a race, though there is a race tracker and there are winners.
There's always someone racing at these things, isn't there?
But he likes to talk about how it's called the spirit de bikepacking. So it's like just trying to give access to folks who maybe haven't done something like this before, and it can be a little bit more approachable, I say, like than some other things, namely, mountain races, things like Hellenic. But yeah, so I think it was nice to go into a race with it being advertised as like, hey, you can ride your bike on this. And for the most part, I mean, the joke was that it's 100% rideable. Of course, there's so many caveats to that, depending on what setup you decide to bring. Because a lot of people, I'd say, honestly, probably about 50-50 between what you'd call like a gravel bike or more of a like hardtail or mountain bike. And it seems like, I mean, you can definitely complete it on either one. I think Uba was on his drop bar hardtail. And it was funny, before the race, the night before we started Classic, I swapped between a mountain bike fork that I had on for Hellenic to a Envy like rigid fork, just because I don't know, when I'm told that half of the route is going to be on tarmac, I don't want to like lug around a mountain bike fork if I don't have to. But anyway, I ran into Uba at the bike shop and he was like, Envy fork, where did you get that? Like, I've been looking for one of those for this race.
You could have sold it to him.
Yeah,
Swapped
exactly.
it for the win.
No, I should have. Probably would have shaved a couple hours off his time. But yeah, I was grateful to have the rigid fork for a lot of the climbs are on pavement. And it was the first time that Ride with GPS has been almost 100% accurate as far as like paved versus unpaved on a route. That was really cool. I think maybe it's just because it's so heavily trafficked that like I'm sure there are people out there who are like, hey, this is a road or this is not a road. And so when you look at the actual track and it tells you, it was pretty much entirely accurate, which was nice.
Yeah, that's it's an important aspect with these races, isn't it? Because sometimes you can tell when a lot of work's been put into the track in terms of planning it and designing it, and you can also tell when someone's just drawn a line on a map,
Yes.
Yeah.
and not tried it. So yeah, I know James puts a lot of work into it, and so yeah, it's nice to hear that it is as good as kind of you think it should be when you see the route on paper, because it's a pretty spectacular part of the world there, isn't it?
Yes.
Anna, would you say that would be a good first bikepacking event for someone?
Absolutely. It was funny. I was thinking that kind of throughout my experience on the route, because even just going into it, like I knew it wasn't going to be easy. Like it's not something that's going to just be a walk in the park. But I think there's lots of factors that make it more approachable than other races. And I mean, the first being that it's in a place that's relatively accessible. Like you can fly from almost anywhere to Barcelona and then take a train to Girona. And then once you're in Girona, if anything has gone wrong or you've lost anything, like there are 40 bike shops there. That is not an exaggeration. That you can find what you need, and it might cost you a pretty penny or two, but it like you can like once you get there, they have everything you need. Even if you just needed a bike, I'm sure you could find someone with one. So yeah, I think that makes it a little bit more feasible for folks. And then also, like you were saying, James does a really good job of being intentional about the route. And there's endless places. Like if you needed to stay somewhere, like there were a few people, and I wouldn't recommend this necessarily, but there are a few people out there who like were basically on a gravel ride. Like they did not have a sleep kit with them. They had some emergency just in case stuff, but for the most part, they were just racing from town to town, trying to line up the timing to where they could sleep inside each night. And there was plenty of resupply, and like it gets remote, and it challenges you the way that an ultra should. Like I said, definitely not easy, and definitely requires fitness. But at the same time, I mean, it's like if anything ever goes wrong, there's always a bailout, or you can shorten the route if you want to. And there's like towns with train stations, like, you know, it's got a lot of the ingredients to like make it feasible for people.
Oh, sounds great. It's definitely one I've been eyeing up in, well, maybe not even to do the event, but just to ride the route as a nice ride. It does look excellent.
It really, it surprised me. Like I knew the Pyrenees were beautiful, but like being out in it, it just felt a lot bigger than I ever expected.
Yeah. Is that your first experience of the Pyrenees?
Yes, sure is.
Yeah, cool. Well, sounds like you've had the best of it then.
Yes, certainly.
And it's pretty wild out there as well. When you get further north in the other side of the border in France, there's a lot more roads, it seems.
No, it was really nice. Along the route you'd be riding, and it'd be this beautiful paved road in seemingly the middle of nowhere. And then someone would come around a corner, and you could tell that they were just out on like a training ride or something. And it felt like somebody went out and built a bunch of roads, and we're like, okay, now go ride your bikes. Like, this is where you ride bikes. This is what it's meant for, is to go out and get to see this part of the world by bicycle. So pretty magic.
Yeah, I had that kind of similar experience on the Tracker 540 actually in May.
Yeah.
And it's quite a lot of off-road, and then suddenly you're kind of on this just perfect ribbon of tarmac, and you're like, why would you even drive here? What's the point? It must be purely for cyclists.
Exactly.
But it's just nice to ride in a country where cyclists are kind of more respected.
Certainly.
Coming from the UK and the US, I'm sure it's quite a significant difference.
Mm-hmm.
On to the main part of the podcast now, and if you listened to last 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? The last episode. I'm losing track now. I've been doing so many with the Daily Tour Divide updates that I'm losing track of reality. But the Tour Divide is on at the moment. This was supposed to be the halfway sort of roundup and discussion, but unfortunately Robin Gempele has ruined it all, and he's nearly finished. It's been incredibly fast on this year's Tour Divide. A lot of riders were ahead of Justina Slovakia's record, especially in the early part, with quite favourable weather conditions. The last few years there's been quite a lot of snow and rain, and sometimes mud up north. But this year it seems like it's just been dry with predominantly a tailwind. And yeah, Robin is probably looking at finishing potentially in the next 24 to 30 hours or so. He's currently in Cuba in New Mexico. And he's got a bit of a road ride ahead of him, hasn't he, Hannah?
Yes, certainly. Although I do remember, I guess, the section just before Cuba, like going from Abiquiu to Cuba, was horrendous. I remember that was like a big old, like gravelly, hot section. And then, after Cuba, you've got like a pretty good stretch of pavement. Yeah,
quite good on resupply. I think that the section before is actually one of the trickiest to resupply on, isn't it? Because you need to resupply in Abiquiu, and I think that the gas station opens at like 6 and shuts at midnight or something, doesn't it?
Yeah,
maybe even earlier.
Have to hit the window, and it's a nice gas station. They've got great breakfast burritos.
They have, yeah. I actually was sat outside it in 2019 waiting for it to open after arriving about 2 a.m. They've actually got fruit and vegetables too, which is a rarity on the Tour Divide.
Yes.
But you get a good resupply, and then you just get absolutely destroyed by probably one of the longest climbs of the race, isn't it? It doesn't look like a massive mountain, but it's a big drag up. So Robin would have done that yesterday. Cuba is before a long section of tarmac heading towards Grants, and then to Pie Town, the classic Pie Town. Did you stop and get a pie at Pie Town?
I didn't. It was the middle of the night, and I stopped at a RV park to fill up on water, and then there were a few women who had stopped there at the little, what do they call it, the toaster
house.
Toaster house, yes. I was like, I don't know if I'm just on like a pie and bread kick to be like toast or something, but yeah, toaster house, that's what it was. Yeah, I went through there like probably an hour after they had stopped, and so I just couldn't find it, and I was like, whatever, I'll just keep going, I guess.
Yeah, I guess by that point in the Tour Divide you're just so used to eating total junk that
Yep.
it doesn't make any difference by that point. It's amazing. I'm pretty sure my digestion changed by the end of it. I could just eat absolutely anything and burn it as fuel.
Yep. It's just being an American.
Yeah, I guess so. It's a shock. I tell you what, coming from Europe, and I mean, you're probably experiencing the opposite right now, being in Europe for about a month or so now. But yeah, good food's easy to get, isn't it, in Europe?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And in the States, I mean, I've done Tour Divide. That's probably the exception because you're pretty much stopping at gas stations. But even touring, it's just hard to buy good food.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can find it, it's really expensive. I pretty much got myself addicted to McDonald's when I rode through the States in 2017.
Well,
I was going to say I literally couldn't ride past a McDonald's without stopping and buying something by the end. It was quite shocking.
Yeah, it's devastating because they don't have, or at least so far, all the McDonald's in Europe don't have the same breakfast. And I love a good Egg McMuffin.
You can take the American out of America, but
Yeah, exactly.
but anyway, back to the Tour Divide. So Robin is staying in Cuba, so maybe he has had an Egg McMuffin in for breakfast because the McDonald's there is a pretty key resupply on the Tour Divide route. So at the moment he's on for just over a 12-day finish. So the current record is Justinas Levejka, and I've not actually written it down, but it's about 20 hours ahead of Justinas. It was just over 13 days, I think, for Justinas. And also Lachlan Morton, he set the kind of, I guess, unofficial, much debated time of 12 days, 5 hours. So it's looking like he could be faster than Lachlan as well. However, there's been a pretty big forest fire north of Silver City, around the village of Trout, and it looks like it's massively impacted the area the route goes through. So there is going to be a fire diversion. So normally that means that even if Robin does set the fastest time, it's not going to be considered an official record. To get an official record on the Tour Divide, you have to complete the exact route, and it sounds like that's not going to happen, which is a real shame because that is, I think it has to be considered one of the fastest times down the divide. We're talking as though he has finished. He's not quite finished yet. He's still got a way to go, and anything can happen on the Tour Divide, and as probably Hannah can attest to. And just because you're in New Mexico doesn't mean that you're out of the woods. There has also been some rainstorms forecast for, I think it was today, Tuesday. So again, it's a lottery, isn't it? Because if you're on one of the off-road sections in New Mexico and it rains, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Did you get any peanut butter mud when you rode?
I didn't. No, and I was thinking that because it always starts on a Friday morning, and I guess I don't know if it'd be the first Friday or the second Friday in June.
I think second is traditional.
Yeah, the second Friday. So my year, it was earlier, like the week earlier that it started, and I think that saved me because I finished, and then a few days later the monsoon season started, and it really wrecked a lot of people. So then last year, I think it was that it pushed it that week later. And I had friends who were on about the same timeline as me that just got literally stuck in the mud in New Mexico.
Yeah, and this was 2023, wasn't it? And of course, if you remember, that was the year we had the infamous porta potty incident in the basin.
Yes.
So you would have been a few days behind the leaders at that point. So you just rode straight through the basin, no problem.
Yeah. I think it was a day and a half, and really that's all it took was just a little bit of sun and a little bit of wind.
So it was Justinas Ulrich, who we just mentioned, from El Piri. He won El Piri. He didn't win it. It wasn't a race, but he was the fastest. And Jens van Roost as well, who is currently in second position. They all got basically stuck in the basin in a massive storm, totally unrideable. But there happened to be a portaloo, a porta potty if you're in the USA, which is pretty random as well for the basin because there's not a lot out there, is there? That was very lucky. And the three of them basically sat in there for 12 hours waiting for the rain to stop and waiting for it to dry enough to actually be able to move forward. So yeah, anything can happen. But as we speak, Robin is looking, well, it's looking like he's going to take the victory in the Tour Divide. And the record is looking pretty solid, I would have thought. But yes, I doubt it's going to be considered the official fastest time though. So Justinas Levejka's record dot might last for another year on track leaders. But yeah, I think we have to just acknowledge how incredibly fast Robin is. It's just amazing, isn't it? Really,
crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. To see him, and it's his rookie rookie year as well.
Yeah.
It took Justinas finished second the year before, and then he took the record. But for Robin to go out and do this on his first year is astonishing.
Yeah, well, we touched on our preview, obviously, but he's absolutely world class, and I think, you know, these bikepacking ultra races, they're starting to improve. You know, I'm sure, Hannah, you've seen the level go up each year. Certainly since I started, it's going up and up, and yeah, it's Robin is just a world class athlete. You know, he could equally be racing cross country World Cups, but he's decided to do bikepacking, and yeah, this is the result. You get a good weather year like this, and that kind of talent, and he's obviously very organised as well.
Mhm.
And it makes it look like a sub 12-day Tour Divide finish could be possible if I mean, it'd have to be good conditions, but if you've got a couple of guys like Robin racing, you know, imagine Lachlan Morton and Robin lining up with someone like Justinas there as well, and maybe Uber. They then push each other, you know, and it really does make a difference. And we saw that as well in the women's race. So currently Natalie Bayon, she's the fastest woman on course, but unfortunately Leah Wilcox had to scratch. She scratched. It was just before the halfway mark, wasn't it? But the two of them were having a really great battle, weren't they? Just Natalie was kind of there's the two tactics here. So Natalie, I mean, she's done a lot of the mountain races. So I've seen her racing quite a lot, and she just rides hard. She rides hard, and she's very good at not sleeping. And she was probably riding maybe a little tiny bit slower than Lael. And Lael was sleeping longer, but every day Lael would catch up with Natalie, get ahead a bit, and then stop for the night, and then Natalie would catch up and get ahead again. So yeah, really good dog watching to see, and that I think they were just forcing each other to, you know, ride faster and faster and faster, which was is really cool.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Lael, I mean, it's fairly well documented. She's had lung issues and breathing issues, especially in the sort of dusty and sort of smoky air. And yeah, the one downside of it being extremely dry and fast is there is a lot of dust in the air, and it sounds like the conditions have just been absolutely playing havoc with Lael's lungs. She had been sending voice notes for my daily coverage, and you could hear her voice deteriorating. So yeah, she's decided to pull out, which is really unfortunate. But I guess it is only a bike race, and health does really have to come first, doesn't it?
So yeah, it's an interesting point, because you see people ride through injuries, but this is such a different type of health problem, and potentially one with many more long-term consequences.
Yeah, well, we saw Joe Nation as well. He was one of our favourites. He ended up pulling out about 3 days in, and it's not quite the same, but he got ill. And he basically ended up on the edge of pneumonia with a really severe chest infection.
That was particularly sad, I think, given he'd made the trip from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Lael is an American, so it doesn't feel like it's such an undertaking for her to do Tour Divide, whereas Joe Nation he appears to be very much a one race per year kind of man.
Yeah.
And this was it. And he scratched very early on.
Yeah, but it just goes to show, without your lungs, I mean, you can't do anything, can you? You know, it's you need oxygen in your body to be able to operate, and you know, you're riding all day, every day. You're at altitude. I mean, when I scratched in 2022, I'm pretty sure I had COVID on the plane. And luckily, I came out a week before, so I managed to get over it, the worst of it. But as soon as I got to Togwati Pass, hit 3,000 meters, I just couldn't breathe. You know, I was getting cramps in my back and things like that, and you know, you just think, well, it's quite hard to continue when you can't breathe. And I ended up ultimately scratching. And so, yeah, I've got a lot of sympathy for Lael. You know, it sucks really. And I know she loves the Tour Divide. But
and she was racing hard for a record again.
Exactly, yeah.
She'll have to wait another year really. But we'll see her at the Transcontinental next month.
Which I'm really looking forward to, actually. I think, I mean, we've talked about it on the podcast before, how having a really strong and deep women's field increases the level overall. And we've seen it to a smaller extent here, like Natalie and Lael really pushing each other. And I think it's kind of obvious that Natalie's slowed down a little bit. Now she's not had, that direct competition with Lael. She's relatively in sort of the field. She's dropped down a bit because they were both well in the top 10. But yeah, just having more direct competition just makes everyone go faster. So the TCR with the women 100 women initiative, isn't it? Trying to get 100 women on the start line, which I think they're very, very close to achieving. It's going to be really fascinating to see, to see the result of that. And I'm pretty certain, I said it before, that there'll be multiple women in the top 10 overall, because they're just racing everyone, and it's going to be great to watch.
We want Lael fit and healthy for that.
Yeah, I've been in touch with Rue a little bit. She's been forwarding on Lael's messages and stuff, and she was saying that basically, like, she didn't have any problems doing the round the world record last year. So I think it is primarily the dust and the off-road riding which really causes her lung problems to flare up. So hopefully on the transcontinental race it'll be less of an issue. So yeah, something to definitely look out for. But that's only the first 2 women in the sort of women's race.
Don't have a whole pack hanging out all together in Wamsutter right now.
There is, yeah. So there's been a bit of to and throwing. So Alexandra Huchin, Quinda Van Hool, Karen Pocock, and Gillian Hatch, they've been sort of swapping positions over the last week or so, but they've all just got through the basin, and as we speak, last night they all stayed in exactly the same hotel in Wamsutter in the middle of the basin, so just past halfway for them. And yeah, there's currently 4 women staying in the same hotel, vying for that 3rd position. So yeah, that's going to be really exciting to watch over the next week or so, I guess. And Anna Jaeger, she's in 2nd position as well. So yeah, she's kind of ridden her own race, hasn't she, Hannah? Just out there by herself and just pacing, doing her own pace.
Oh yeah, I've always known her to be very consistent when it comes to the race. Like, she always rides super strong, and kind of it'll sneak up on you a little bit, just because then all of a sudden she's there. Yeah.
Well, it looks like she's looking at the average speeds and stuff on track leaders that Natalie was way faster early on, probably because of the kind of, I guess, duel with Lael. But yeah, Anna's just been very, very consistent, and the gap sort of gradually closing down day by day. I think the gap is probably too big now for her to actually really close on Natalie.
I was going to say, she's barring disaster, Anna's very settled into a 2nd position in the women's. But Hannah, from what we know of her, would she be checking the tracker and looking at the blokes around her?
I mean, I guess maybe if there's like an overall, like if there's a landmark that she's near, I mean, and that's just coming from my own like experience, even at El Piri, where I was like, okay, well, what am I going for? Do I want to try for top 10? Do I care about top 15? And I think Anna, I don't really know her to be too worried about that kind of thing, just in general. Like, she's just riding her race and is going to finish where she feels good. So I don't know that would be a big concern for her necessarily. But it's like, I don't know, you do these things to challenge yourself. And if there are folks around you that can help you do that, then that can always be motivating. So I've found that, like, if I'm riding around a group of men, there's like a couple of them I get along with, and then a couple of them that I'd like to beat. So depends.
Nothing like a bit of motivation to go faster.
Exactly.
So yeah, I guess I mean, like we've said before, the storms are forecast in New Mexico, so anything can happen still. If Natalie gets stuck and Anna doesn't, a 12-hour gap can disappear in no time. So yeah, Tour Divide is never over till it's over, and you just have to, fundamentally, you have to keep sort of trucking along, do your own race, and luck does play a bit of a role in it. And sometimes if you're faster, you kind of do better, or you get better luck. But sometimes if you're slower, it can soon pay itself back a bit.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You got to keep an eye on Alexandra Houchin, because she's been through this. I don't know, this is her 6th time, and
probably the most experienced person in the whole field.
Yeah, and she's hungry. She's got it in her for sure. And she's done it single speed the last 4 times, and now she's got gears this year for the first time since 2018. So I'm stoked for her to really continue to ride a really strong race. She's already been going super hard, and I could totally see where this last bit she's able to just continue to push in a way that maybe less experienced riders aren't able to.
Exactly. And there's 3 other women right with her right now as well, so as I say, it just pushes you along a little bit, which is going to be really cool. So yeah, women's race is looking great. I mean, there's pretty fast times all around, really. So Andrew Onomar, he is riding single speed, and he's basically challenging the record time as well. Hannah, you know Andrew fairly well, don't you? What
Yeah,
can you tell us
absolutely.
about his
Yeah.
riding and?
Yeah, I joke that he's like the king of Arkansas. He he does a lot of organizing out in the east in the U.S. He's got a race called Doom Ozark Gravel Doom that he ran Arkansas High Country for a couple of years. So he's a great organizer in the space, and he has been focused on riding a whole lot this year. So I think he went into Tour Divide kind of vying for. I don't know if it was the record necessarily, but like it seems like he's up there pushing it. And really, I mean, early on, I feel like I looked at the tracker and his name was like up near the top 10 overall.
Yeah, he was in top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
And I guess again, it's I guess you don't necessarily. Well, some people might set out trying to, specifically aim for the record. If you ask Robin, I think he would say he was aiming for that record.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just find yourself having a fast run and the record's there, there's just that little bit of extra motivation. So Chris Plesko's record was set in 2016, which was the year, I think it's probably known as the perfect year on Tour Divide, when Mike Hall set that long-standing record. Basically perfect conditions, minimal rain, no bad weather, no mud. So that's sort of gives you an idea of, what it took to set that record in the first place. And he's about 10 miles ahead. And the thing about these records in single speed as well is that you've only got one gear. So, if he's on the same gearing as Chris when he set that record, it's going to be very difficult to open or close 10 miles by just riding. It's like the speed is the speed. And and when you're at the tail end of the Tour Divide, your legs only go around so fast. So it doesn't matter whether you've got gears or single speed. So yeah, again, that's another exciting thing to keep an eye on. And there's a little battle for third position as well. So Joachim Buringer and Max Rieser, they're again doing very similar to like all the women there. They basically, Joachim seems to be riding a bit quicker but sleeping more, and then Max basically sees him at every single resupply, and they're staying in the same town every night. So
they are truly neck and neck.
A drag race across the desert.
Yeah, although they are not far behind Jens van Roost. They've been catching up a little bit over the past few days, and I see them catching him.
If you look at the stats, Jens has kind of slowed down a little bit, and last night he slept on pretty much on top of Indiana Pass, which is, you must be pretty tired to sleep up there, because it's just under 4,000 meters.
Yeah. It's the
so
high point, right?
It is, yeah. It's like 3,990 something, I believe. So he would have been sleeping over 3,000 meters elevation, which, he must have been very, very tired to want to sleep up there, knowing there's also Skyline Lodge at the bottom of the descent, which is primarily downhill. There's kind of a mini, is it like a few miles, isn't it, the little pass?
Yeah, but I remember when you're in it, it feels like a lot more work to get down there. Like it felt like it took a long time to get off of Indiana Pass.
Yeah. But it's long. Is it like 3 or so hours to climb up it, maybe more? I think I left at maybe 1 a.m. and got there at dawn when I did it in 2019, or maybe 1:30, 2 a.m. So yeah, that's quite. It's almost harder to concentrate on the downhills. So if Jens got up there at like midnight and trying to concentrate on where you're going with like trees going by your eyes when with a quite artificial light on, it can be difficult. So yeah, maybe that could explain why I slept up there. The other explanation is that he's just been riding Tour Divide for 10 days and is ruined, which is also kind of, I'd say, probably pretty valid. But yeah, Max and Jochen, they seem to be pushing each other as well. So, it's just, when you can see another rider, it always gives you that little nudge, doesn't it? And Jens has been pretty much by himself for the last week, I think. So yeah, we could have a race for second still. Yeah, plenty to look at. So keep an eye on track leaders, and I'll carry on doing my daily coverage and see how it all pans out. Right, that's pretty much it for the Tour Divide roundup. Have you got anything else to add in, Hannah or Beccy?
I do not. I've been enjoying listening to you two talk. Places I can't even imagine.
Although we do have to thank Beccy for putting a lot of work into actually making our facts semi-accurate. Because if I was in charge, then all winning times would be roughly rounded up to the nearest week. So that's it for this episode of Ultrascape. The next one will be probably in a couple of weeks' time, and we'll have a roundup of the Tour Divide. We'll let you know if Robin did get that fastest time, and see what like the final podiums for both the men and the women, and also see if Andrew breaks that single speed record. That's going to be great to watch. And then we'll be looking ahead towards the Transcontinental race and Bright Midnight, which Hannah is going to next.
Yep.
So,
Hannah could be our on-the-ground race reporter.
Yeah, so Bright Midnight is organised by the current Tour Divide FKT holder and champion, Justina Slaveca. Might not be the champion by the next time we speak, but
that's how he likes it.
So
have something.
Yeah, so Hannah's going to race his event in Norway, which is going to be great. So we'll report on that as well. So yeah, thanks Hannah for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your trip and your time on the road. And thanks, Beccy. And we'll see you in a few weeks' time.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you for joining us, Hannah.
Yes, thanks so much for having me, all.
Cheers, and see ya.
Bye.